Alright, today for the intro I'm going to say what's up. So today I'm working on the cold side, more of the cold side. It's going to take a long time, I think. So let's discuss this. So last video I finished up doing all the welding around here, so got these all fitted up. I did end up having to add on an additional section because when I cut these, for some reason I cut them really short and they weren't long enough to be able to I guess get a bead underneath the coupler, so I ended up extending these longer, so that's why you can see there's a weld right there. That's basically how short they were. So ended up adding a section on to both of these, so I'll be able to bead roll and then crimp there. And then I drilled a hole, used a burr bit on the die grinder and kind of hogged out the hole a little bit. Now I'm going to make some pie cuts and probably come up here. I don't have any aluminum mandrel bends, so what I think I'm going to do is like probably come up this way and then come up into here and drill a hole somewhere in this section. Yeah, I want to try to keep it away from the exhaust, keep the hot away from the cold as much as I can, but what I don't want to do is come in here too early because the fender flap that is underneath there starts about here, so I don't want to open this up and then get shit being like blasted in from the wheel in here. So probably going to try to get inside the flap and make an opening around this area and then go down. But I gotta keep in mind that I need to be able to connect these with a coupler somehow and then be able to remove this thing. So I'll probably come up into here, maybe into a coupler, and then I'll be able to weld a separate section up and then stick it up from the bottom, come out, coupler, and then I can go down and then basically straight forward. That's the idea. Let's do something. Alright, so I got some of the first pie cuts made. So what I'm going to do here is weld all these up, but where I biffed the sandwich is that I marked all of them before I cleaned them. So I got to clean up all the aluminum. I usually go over it with a Scotch-Brite and acetone to clean it, and the acetone will wipe all the markings off. I usually do, when I mark, I do a straight line and an X. I got it all jumbled up here, but I'll use this as an example. So I usually do like a straight line and an X mark. That's just how I do it personally, so I can line it up easily. Because if you do two straight lines, you might be able to mix them up or set them offset, or if you just did one straight line, it might be twisted. I don't know. This is just my method. Probably not the best, but I know exactly where it needs to be with this method. And what I'm going to do now is clean all this stuff, and then I'm going to remark it. So let's do that, because when I Scotch-Brite it and clean it, it's going to erase my marks. Alright, so I think I might have thought of a better way to explain this. So let's look at this. So I have a line, an X, and the spacing is there, but I found a good example here. So here is the line and the X, but if you make the spacing marks, like if you marked it but you did use the same spacing, you might accidentally make the same spacing and flip the piece backwards. So these are basically identical if the piece is flipped, but one is a line and one you can tell is an X. So if you were close on positioning, this is why I do it. I don't know if this is even a normal method, but I usually do a line and an X. I actually normally, on this I just did one line, one X. I normally do a line, an X in the middle, and then another line in a different spot, so I know exactly where it is. Because if I just did two straight lines, I could easily fudge this thing up and weld it in the wrong position, because those lines are lined up perfectly. X, line, flip it, same spot, line, X, but that looks a little goofy because I did them different. But if you just did a straight line, you could easily confuse it. That's why I do it. Don't really know if it's a great method or whatever, but it makes sense to me, and that's why I do it. All right, so blast from the past or to the future. I got all those pieces welded up, welded on. There we go, and I got a hole cut in the bed, and this piece is going to go through the bed. So I did some more pie cuts, aluminum TIG welded cuts. So this is going to go inside here. And again, I did the line and the X. So let's line these up. So this is going to go. And the piece goes through the bed. And you can see the black dot that I have right there with a marker. That is the vertical piece. That's like the very top of it. So that's where I want it to be. And that's how I made the piece with the welds. So if you look at this, essentially it goes in this way. The dot is on the top and the pie cut section goes down. So my plan is to extend that, and that's where my coupler is going to go. So what I want to do is have this inserted on here, and I should be able to get it out with this piece still connected, I hope. That's what I'm going to try. So I'm going to take this whole section out. I'm going to weld this bead right here, and hopefully I can still get it in and out. And I do have enough room on the bottom to be able to get a coupler on that. So that's the plan, is to put a coupler on the bottom of that section. So let's try it. Backblast area clear! It's not for everybody, I guess, but I did just make this section. I had this section on before. It was about to here. I think what I showed before, and then I added this, added this, added this, and a lot of this was made with the new belt sander that I got. So this thing is sweet. Turns on, turns off, pretty cool stuff. It really helps with the pie cuts, cleaning up the edges on the pie cuts. So I'm really excited about that, because that was what I was struggling with. Like when I was fitting joints, and TIG welding is very particular, I will say that, in how you have to have the joints fitted together. So I literally, with the MIG welder, I filled like it was like a 1-inch gap just as a joke, and I filled the whole thing. You could do it with a TIG, but if you want to do like a realistic joint with a TIG, it's very important that you have the joints very clean. So this is really going to help with that. I was using the chop saw before, so I would do like a joint, and then I would put it against the side of the chop saw blade and smooth it out. So that's what I was doing before. Now I did this. This is where I'm at. Works like a bazooka. And I'll show you where it goes. All right, and just so happens to happen, what I was referencing before, the gap that I filled. Some of you guys are probably familiar with this thing, but this was a gap from here to here. This whole thing was a gap, and I just filled it with the MIG welder as a joke. And it's been on the truck for over a year. Look at this. There's a bead there, and this whole thing is just like, whoa. So you can really do anything if you put your mind to it. But we're trying to get a little bit better at doing stuff, so that's what I'm learning. Learning how to actually care about stuff and get the joints where they need to be, make the welds look a little bit better, and even the inside. Ooh, look at this. Look inside that pipe. Look at that. That looks pretty good. Yeah. Like a little lobster. If you've ever been inside of a lobster before. If you've ever been inside of a lobster, leave it in the comments. A lot of you guys are probably like me and you prefer a lobster to be inside of you, but if you've ever been inside of a lobster, I'd like to hear about it. Alright, so now that I have added on, we have 1 turby, 3 2B, 2 turby, all the pipes. I'm going to put this thing, ooh, I might not be able to do it with the camera there. But essentially, this is going to go down, and when it's in here, it's going to go down, and then I'm going to add a coupler onto this bottom section. So I want this to be able to go in, down, and then line up where it needs to be. So essentially, this is not going to be in the exact position, but essentially now that goes down 90 degrees and there's enough room underneath there to put a coupler on that section. So this will be one section, and then I will add a coupler, and then I will have a forward section. So that's how that's going to work, and I'm actually pretty happy with how it turned out. Alright, so we have the passenger side, cold side section all done over there, down to where it's going to connect to another piece. But I think what I want to do now, since almost all of the back section is done, I want to finish the wastegate here. So I have a wastegate flange. I ended up going with a 60mm wastegate. Guys, let me grab this thing and I'll show you how big this thing is. It's kind of a unique unit, and some of you may have seen a 60mm wastegate before, but I personally have not before I bought this thing. I've only been using 44mm gates, and this is what my plan is for this. So I might just shoot it straight back and out here. My original thought was to shoot it this way and then run it into the exhaust. But what I'm concerned about doing there is I'm adding another connection point. So I have 3 separate turbos that have their own mounting points, and then the back housings all have their own mounting points. And then to tie in another, it would be a 7th mounting point essentially. That might be a challenge to get all of it to fit perfectly. So I think, I don't know, we'll see. I'm just brainstorming right now, but it will be easier to just launch this thing out a hole there, back by the wheel. So anyways, guys, this is a 60mm wastegate, and it's gigantic. Look at this thing. Look how big this thing is. Pretty cool. So I was going to do a 44mm because I have one sitting over on the floor for my old setup. I was going to reuse that one. And I was talking to Matt from Sloppy, and he was like, bro, put a fucking 60mm on the end of that thing. And I was like, I thought about it, and I'm like, I don't really want to do that because, you know, thinking economically, I already have one. I don't want to buy a new one when I already have something I can use. But then I was thinking about how I'm going to reduce the size and get this size to reduce to the 44mm and make it work, and then it hit me like a sack of bricks. Okay, the 60 mil is exactly 2.5 inches, which is what I'm using right now. So it was like an epiphany, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna do that. So that's where we're at now. I'm gonna weld this thing on, and I like this flange. This flange is cool because it has a fire ring built into the flange. Look at that. The fire ring. Usually there's a separate ring that goes inside of there. That goes in the flange, but the fire ring is built into the flange that you weld on. Pretty cool. So I'm gonna weld this thing on, and then essentially what I'm gonna do for now is just leave it twisted this way. The only thing I have to do with the rest of the backside here is mount everything, because right now it's been balancing on a Sawzall and this pipe the whole time. So we're gonna get it off of that stuff, do the threaded rod and pipe, what I showed you guys before, get this thing stabilized, and then this will be mounted. I'll shoot it back for a little bit, and then we have to run the pipe to the front, run the oil lines, and then we're gonna be really close to done here. We're gonna be really close to disappointing everyone. Right, so I got the wastegate welded back on now. That's how she looks. I think for now I'm just gonna fire it down or straight up, not even do a pipe with it yet. I do have the rest of the aluminum pipe on this side in. This one is coming all the way through, and I did add a section on underneath. Well, you can see that, but kind of comes through, around, down, pie cuts, and then going to basically run this straight forward under in this section here. So I'm going to cut a little bit of an angle, maybe another 1 or 2 pie cuts. Probably only need 1, and then I'm going to run the pipe all the way forward to the front section. So that will be the next step. Up there is going to be a coupler, so I have it joined right there. So that's where I'm gonna join it, because this piece is so bendy I won't be able to get it out if I didn't split it there. All right, so I got this whole pipe done. That's going to go up to the front, and still working on my welding, of course, but you see here we got like little flashes of greatness where there's like just some really good stuff happening, but it's followed by this whole booger section. And right here the fit up wasn't perfect, and it was like blowing holes in it as I'm trying to feed rod in, but that section looks really nice. I just got to work on trying to get more consistent. And I got a whole big old booger pile right here. I think this one, what I did was I had some aluminum rods, but I didn't clean up my stainless rod that I had. And there was one stainless rod that I had sitting on the table. And when I started this section, I started to make my tack, and then I was trying to feed stainless rod into it, and it just like blew the whole thing apart. They look pretty similar. So just missed it, and I figured it out pretty quickly after that. But kind of where I'm at right now, I'm going to put this thing in and we'll call it a night. All right, guys, so that's it for this one. I will show you what I got, but I really like this thing. You can see I got a bunch of aluminum dust from sanding all the pie cuts clean. This works really nice. I'm very glad I bought it. Moving forward, we got the wastegate on now on that side. I don't have the exhaust bolted on. What I still have to do here with the exhaust is do the loud valve and then go back to the muffler. So, but either way, just how I have it right now, I could just dump it straight down. It'll be fine. I do have to put a wideband bung in there somewhere. Probably do that up front. This is the pipe underneath. You can see it's actually buried pretty nice behind the rocker, so it doesn't hang down. That's really cool. I got it just propped up on a jack stand right now, and this is where it's coming through. So right now I'm going to come up. Ooh, look at that guy. Right now I'm going to come up here into this area. I did talk about doing like a small air to water intercooler right here, but what I think I'm going to do for now is take this pipe, flip it back over, run it this way, run it down. I'm out of the 3-inch tubing, this tubing, but I do have some leftover 3-inch intercooler kit piping that I might use to finish it. So I'd probably run it with no intercooler initially. That might be a fun test to see what it does with no intercooler on low boost, and then add an intercooler. Yeah, that's kind of where that's at. So it's all coming together. Sorry it's a little slow, but these a lot of these welds all take a lot of time, and I usually don't have a lot of time in a day. I just do what I can each day and get some stuff done. So this video was recorded over a couple different days, just little bits at a time, but trying to develop some new skills and eventually do something. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.